already heard from Gene Kelly once this morning. This next session is going to be on crop and soil health in general. Gene's done plenty of work internationally and domestically, sits on multiple chairs, boards, and everything else. Yeah. He's going to talk more about, I guess, his specific research and yeah, we'll have a longer session here, so a Q&A at the end as well. Awesome. And
Awesome. Clicker, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, okay. Come on over. Just make sure you're in the box and you got the floor.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Gene.
Great, thank you. Well, hi everybody. I'm back again. So you didn't get rid of me yet. Well, good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon. So I'm just here. I'm going to give you kind of an overview of some of the things we're doing, and I think the sessions that are going on today deal a lot with technology. You know, kind of like, and you might say to yourself, well, how, you know, I want to get into organic farming. What does technology have to do with that, right? Well, let me tell you, technology has everything to do with it, right? And so I think if you're going to be on the cutting edge of doing things, you just need to know what's out there. And we're doing a lot of training with students and scientists in terms of trying to incorporate things like AI. You're going to say, what? You know, with organic farming, I just want to go back and I want to take my manure and I want to put it out and I want, you know, but there's going to be a lot of things changing in agriculture, particularly with monitoring, the way we monitor these things, the way they'll be monetizing things. You saw the Comet Farm and Comet Planner, and those are pretty, you know, they're farmer friendly, but it takes a little while to pick up how those work and understand the nuances of those and what you can actually say with those things, right? That's kind of a big debate among the scientific community now, you know, using those tools. So I'm going to talk a little bit about technology and soil health. I gave a talk like this a couple of weeks ago to the Academy, and, you know, people are really interested in, you know, what can I get? Like this idea of going out and sampling soils all the time. We've sampled soils for the last 100 years, right? I mean, so like how do we use what's been done before to help us move ahead, right? And so that's a big question, is that it's so cost intensive to go out and take a sample and run it. And then if your variability is 20%, what is that really telling you anyway, right? So we need some other ways of doing that. So I'll just talk a little bit about my perspective on soils and the kinds of things that we're working on in my group. And again, this is I worked all out, but this is all Colorado focused. So it has a lot to do with the Climate Smart Commodities program and the STORE program. So, and I'm just more of a head there, that all the people that at CSU do all the work. I just sort of sit back and complain. So anyway, so we want to broaden our view of soil health. Oh, was there a question there? Was that, oh, you're just scratching. Okay. Anyway, so, or I'm just teasing. Anyway, so we're broadening our view of soil health. That's kind of what we need to do, right? As a scientific community. And when I say science, I talk about everybody. You guys are scientists. I'm a scientist. We're all the same. We're just on a spectrum, right? It's just different. So we need to sort of broaden our perspective of what soil health is. Like, so if you listen to the newspapers and you see Kiss the Ground and you see all these things, everybody's going to tell you, well, soil health's about carbon. Well, it's not. It's a part of the picture, but it's not carbon. Particularly in Colorado, right? It's you kind of go, well, we have a warming planet and water is limited. Do the math, right? 6 moles of water for 6 moles of CO2, right? You got to have water to fix carbon, right? There's no other way around it, right? So we understand that. So we've come up with something called the strategic utilization of soils. Okay, that's kind of a new thing, right? And it can be used in any setting. So I sort of just stole from myself and I put it into soil health. And it actually is an interesting thing that we're going to be testing with the Climate Smart Commodities program. I'm going to talk about AI, you know, not the large language models, which, you know, ChatGPT and all those. Those are fun. If you've ever played, anybody ever play with those? Aren't they great? I mean, it's kind of weird, right? But, you know, we took a proposal that I submitted to the NSF, and we had a couple of drinks one night, and we said, hey, let's have John Steinbeck write this. So we put it in, and John Steinbeck rewrote the proposal. It was like, it was funny. I mean, more than anything, you know, the span of the horizon. Anyway, okay. So we're talking about AI, and we're talking about precision ag, or what we call decision ag, right? Right. So that's the thing. That's a powerful tool too. So these are just tools that you might be able to think about. And then I'm going to talk about something called climate-informed agriculture. So Secretary Vilsack today, and Tom's amazing, but he was talking about climate smart agriculture. And we just put a project together. We just published something today. It'll be released next week. We're presenting it to the public university presidents. I haven't gotten it put together yet, but I will promise I'll have it done. So anyway, so we're giving a talk up in Seattle about that. And we're trying to get everybody to say climate informed agriculture, not climate smart. right? Climate smart insinuates that we actually know what we're doing. Climate informed is saying, well, we understand about climate. Can we adjust systems to meet those climatic needs? So it's more forecasting. So we're about trying to look ahead. So if I can tell you, you shouldn't grow wheat this year, you should grow sorghum, right? Before you even plant, wouldn't you love that? If I told you this is what you should grow next year because you'll make money on it, right? This is what the markets are going to be, right? That would be a powerful tool, right? That's a really useful tool for farmers. All right, that took way too long. Okay, so we'll go through the beginning here. What we want to do is match practices to environment. Soil health is context-based. Everything you're seeing in the soil health literature is from the eastern part of the United States. Most of it is not from the western part of the United States. Even my colleagues at CSU are all working east of the Mississippi, right, with mostly large commodities in agriculture, right? And so there's a sort of a narrative. So what we want to say is that practices match environment. In Colorado, our soil health practices in Sterling are different than the ones we use in Cortez. And over on the western slope in the Colorado River Basin, we have a completely different issue than we do in the southeastern part of the state, right? So what we want to do is use this knowledge base. The largest database the USDA puts out is the Soil Survey. It's the largest database. They've been doing that for 100 years. There's a lot of really good information there. So we're trying to get people to go back and look at that and make sure it's good. But that's what we're trying to do. We want to enhance nutrient stewardship, right? That's another thing we got to do. You got to be careful with you. You got to know what you're putting on, right? Not blindly. That doesn't make any sense, right? We want to know it's there, but you want to know what's there, right? If you get something done in the lab, what's the gold standard? Where is that? Where does that reside, right? It's the issue, actually. No, anyway, but that's the place, right? We want to have a gold standard. So we're working toward gold standards for what, how do you compare that? Reduce physical disturbance and organic, that's going to be your challenge, right? I mean, we did a talk last couple of months, but I don't know when it was a while back, but it was on disturbance, right? How are you going to control weeds, right? Well, we got to plow, so we did, and I showed some literature in the last one. There's some slides you guys can see. It was more about cover crops and tillage and ways to control weeds and pests and stuff like that. So that was what I talked about last time. So that's there available to you. And then reduce chemical additions and improve resiliency, right? That's what we're all about. All right. This is, okay. So this is what we call the soil carbon, soil health conundrum, right? Because they're saying it's all about soil carbon, right? And soil carbon is a part of the picture. It's not the picture, right? And the reason is that the numbers are going to be a little confusing, but everybody's being told we're going to reverse climate change. Who in here believes that? Thank you. Okay. Right? We're not going to reverse climate change. We're going to try to drive agriculture to net zero carbon. And if we're net zero carbon and you add more, then I guess you're sequestering. There's a paper that came out today about using the word sequester. It's misleading, right? So listen, man, I'm all the way on the left, man. I want this all to work, but we need to use science. Science needs to support this. Science holds this whole thing up, right? So the carbon story is interesting because, you think of 34% of the greenhouse gases, right? A food system, that is, not just cultured systems are about 20 to 22%, so what we do on the field contributes that much to the carbon, the emissions. And when you add the food system, processing, manure, all that kind of stuff, it's about 34% of the entire food system responsible for greenhouse gases. And that's not only CO2, that's methane, and also nitrous oxide is the big one now. That's the one we can all be better at that. And organic has a really big role there. I mean, I think that's a pinch point. There's a way to get into that gig because the nitrogen story is, I think, the most interesting. So you can sequester 3.5 petagrams of carbon per year from agricultural activities. That assumes everybody on the planet does the same thing. We go no-till, There are values that have never been reported more than 0.2 to 0.4. So there's no way, right? When you have a soil and you culture it, right, from beginning soils, you plow it. After 4 or 5 years, you lose about 40% of the carbon. Just because of the way you treat it. There's nothing wrong with that, man. Agriculture, we got nothing to apologize for, man. What I tell everybody is agriculture is the most successful industry on the planet. Nothing compares to it. You don't have to apologize. We just need to adjust, right? We can make this work, but it's got to be science and technology. So you're never gonna, if you lose 40% in a year of 4 years, let's say I studied this in the 80s, 4 or 5 years, you lose 40% of your carbon. That could be from mineralization and stuff, and also erosion, but it takes 30 to 40 years to put that much back. You lose it in 5, 30 to put it back. Do the math. Doesn't add up, right? Okay, all right. I don't want to be negative. I want to finish on a high note here. Anyway, so I get into the negative spiral all the time. But anyway, so we want to be carbon neutral, and the idea is to avoid the moral hazard for policymakers. The mistake we're making as scientists, is we're telling policy people, hey man, we can reverse climate change. I mean, I didn't say that, but I got and can't, right? And so that's a bad thing to do, because they're going to say, well, we can keep burning fossil fuels, because that's going to solve all the problems. When was the last time they tried to make farmers rich? That's what I want to tell you, right? I don't remember, and I'm older than everybody in here, right? But that hasn't happened yet, right? I mean, not. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about water. Water is the integrated master variable. It's the most important variable in soils, in natural systems and also in cultured systems. It's really, really important. The problem is that most of us don't know what water we have in our soils, right? You want to agree or no? It's hard. Like, how many sensors do I need? Anybody's got a big product? No, they're expensive, Gee. I'm not putting them out there, right? So there's a lot of innovation that can go in there. But soil water is the most important variable. It's like driving a car without a gas gauge, right? You wouldn't do that, right? I mean, I do that. My gas gauge has been broken for like 15 years. But the point of the matter is, right, you wouldn't drive a car without a gas gauge, right? So why would you plant anything without knowing how much water is in there, right? COMET's not going to tell you that, but there are other ways to do it, right? So that's it. Water is important. I'm going to talk about water. So I'm going to give you a little fun fact, okay? This is like thing, and you can say you heard it here. Okay, so non-ag ecosystems consume 3/4 of the water. So that's the natural landscapes. 3/4 of the water on the planet go into natural landscapes, not ag, right? Okay, so you're going, wait, what, right? Well, that's different, right? So what, in some parts of the world, what they're doing is, I'm not irrigating, man, I'm going to rain fed. I got to figure out how to do that, right? And they can do that in other parts. We can't do that here, unfortunately, but you could. You could go to rangelands maybe, or something, go to a dry land system, but you have to think differently about it, right? Everybody know what green water is? When I say green water, that's water that comes out of the soil through the plant. That's called transpirated water, or water that flows through the system is called green water. And we use it as soil water, right? So it's soil water. Green water is soil water. Here's the fun part. This is really cool. And I did this. So what it is the flow of green water on the entire planet, right, in soil equals all the major rivers that go into the oceans. The largest reservoir of fresh water in Colorado is what?
Blue Mesa, trees, crops,
soil. But what is magnitude more? Think about it. Think where all the rivers are and all the soil we have. The largest reservoir, I didn't say it was full, but it's a reservoir, right? Okay, the largest reservoir, terrestrial water, fresh water, is soil, right? Okay, so we got to think more about that, right? That's an important thing to manage. Okay, and so what we do is we do a lot of work on the hydrological behavior, right? So you guys, this is a soil profile. This is what I spent my whole career doing, right? And all my earlier career was all real theoretical. Now I'm old and stuff, so I got to make a difference, right? So I got to start working in, CDA, and I start trying to help people, stop worrying about myself all the time, right? Okay. So anyway, so that's nobody's laughing, man. It's lunchtime. Let's loosen up a little bit anyway, right? So anyway, so that's a soil profile. And what I'm interested in is there's good carbon up there. See that carbon up, the dark color? That's my favorite picture. This is a soil out in eastern Colorado, and just off of I-70 actually. And anyway, so the carbon up there, and then you got the calcite, right? Calcium carbonate, those are salts. Calcium carbonate is carbon. So that sequesters carbon, but it takes a really long time to do that. But that's carbon too, right? There's a lot of carbon in there, organic and inorganic. And then you see all this kind of cracks and everything, right? And that's the cool stuff, right? That's where the water is, right? So water is soil's like a sponge, right? If you just take a sponge and you put it in a bucket and you just hold it up, and I wouldn't hold it on my head, but I hold it in your head, right? And it wouldn't drip on your head, right? It shouldn't, because it's holding all the water because of all these cool things in physics, right? Well, that's what soil's like. So its differences because the porosity is really different, right? And then you have fine pores, coarse pores, and it's like I had a really good picture one time of virtual reality, like walking through a soil pit, like, in a soil, like where you were in there walking around and everything like that. I did. Yeah, it was the old days when I was doing a little bit of, anyway, so. Okay, so we're gonna move ahead here. So now what we're doing is we're doing this idea. So the soil, I'm telling you, soil water is important, right? And you say, well, Gene, prove it. I go, okay. So what I'm doing is we have something called strategic utilization of soils. When I came to Colorado back a long time ago, I had no money. And CSU had no money. This campus wasn't even an idea back then. So I came in, I was like poor. I was kind of hippie. I was like, hey, what am I going to work on? I was working in Africa and all that. And this guy goes to me, measure something. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, no, it doesn't matter what it is, just measure something, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to measure water. I swear. So I started measuring water all over Colorado. Every time I got money, I put sensors in it. I have sensors all over, right? I can't remember what half of them are, but they're there, okay? So anyway, it was why I didn't have a lot of grad students, so I was doing it all myself. So anyway, so what we do is we monitor water everywhere, right? And we're interested in not only in the top, in the middle, and down below. We want to know what the profile looks like, right? Because how long does water sit in soil? Anybody know? How old is the water down here? Do you know how old it is? That's a really good question. Who cares, right? Right? But it's old. So water in the soil sits there for a long time. Soils hold on to it for hundreds of years. I dated it. Huh? I mean, I didn't date it. I might have anyway, but so what it is you have this soil system. So we monitor it all over. And what I do as a soil scientist and a pedologist, what I'm interested in is like, why are soils different? I want to know that. That's what it hurts when I hear people like ignore soil, right? I hate that, right? I don't take it personally, but I do. Anyway, so we have these landscapes. So what I'm going to show you now, this is an example, and these are all over Colorado. So, all right, so what I have is a young soil, and that means young, like, geologically young, like probably less than 5,000 years, right? And the reason we know it's young is because it doesn't have any horizons. It's like a sand column, right? Then we have the intermediate, and I wrote a paper once, I called it middle-aged. Right? And I got hit for that one pretty hard. So they wouldn't take middle age. But when I got the draft back, I put it back in at the end, right? So I called those the middle-aged soils. So those are the ones that are robust, fully developed. So they have good horizons. They get water. They store water. They don't let go of water. It's all these people, right? Okay. And then, of course, you have the old soils. I won't point to anybody in this room, but and I used to call those the senile soils, right? And they didn't like that either, so I call them old. So those are soils that are so old that they just have gone beyond. So all the stuff that they had, the horizons, they're all gone because they're old. It weathers. Soils start as a rock, and they end up in the ocean. That's like that's not going to help you all with your organic thing, but that's the way you should always think of soils. Soils are rocks on their way to the oceans, right? They always end up in the ocean. They all end up in the ocean. Okay. I'm losing track here. Okay, so we have these. So what I did is I measured the water in these systems. So this is the water in the young soil, right? It doesn't hold a lot. Look at that, you middle-aged one, right? Pretty good. Senile, adios, right? You're on the way out. It's all down here. It's not helping us, right? So there's a difference in the ways and where soils are. So what I do is I measure this, and then I can use soil survey data to find out where those soils are. So I can plug in. I'll say, tell me where this soil is on this landscape, and I can create a map. And it'll show me exactly where that soil is. Now, where would you want to do yours? You'd say, hey, Gene, show me where that phase 2 soil is, right? And that's where we put our sensors. So we want to know if Kate is paying us to put sensors out, I can say, hey, you know what? That soil where those sensors are covers 70% of the landscape. That's that's not putting a sensor in the ground. That's letting me extrapolate that, right? Right? Because we measure everything at a point, but it's not powerful unless we can point and say, no, it's over there too, and it's over there. Don't go over there. Don't use that part. Farmers know their fields. I don't have to tell a farmer. They know. They tell me where to put the sensor. Put it here, Kelly. Put it here, right? But I'm just saying. But think of that. That's a huge knowledge base to know what's underground and where you should be putting your stuff, right? Right? Just move a little bit, all right? Shake your heads. All right, there we go. All right. Yeah, I was an annoying professor. I'm still an annoying professor. Anyway, so we go to the next one. So what we do is we mapped it out. So what we did is we measured the amount of water held in each layer, right? Because that's what you want to know. You want to know where it is, right? So these are the amounts of water stored there. And then what you can see is in the middle intermediate soils, we call it biologically available water. There's a saying called plant available water. It doesn't mean anything, right? Because that's done with crops. It depends on what crop I put in. If I put sorghum, that's different than corn, that's different than wheat. So we say biologically available water, we can cut that up because microbes right? They suck water out of, it's dry. Microbes live forever, especially fungi. Be careful. Don't ever put soil in your mouth. I had a student do that one time, and it was horrible. It broke out with this fungus. It was like that show, The Last of Us or something. You ever see that?
No.
So the fungi is killing. Did you see that?
Yeah.
It freaked me out, man. I was like, my ear, I had a fungus in my ear, and the ear doctor said to me, she goes, dude, you got to watch this show. My doctor says, dude. She calls me dude. She goes, dude, you got to watch this show. So I watched the show, and it's this thing about fungi taking over the world. And they are, man. Anyway, all right. All right, so now this is moving. What's going on here? Oh, is this supposed to move? No, it's not moving. Okay, anyway, this is supposed to move. And so what this does is we took the entire Western Great Plains and used that model of the different soils, and then we used the rainfall for the last 100 years. And the way this is supposed to work is I click on this, it's not working, and then it runs the soil moisture for the last 100 years in all those soils. Isn't that cool? It's so cool when you see it. I'll try to get it running when it's on site, but it shows that even in Texas, there was some times of the year when the moisture was the same as it was in North Dakota. It's pretty variable, huh? Do you know there's more variability in carbon within the landscape than there is from Texas to North Dakota? North Dakota has more carbon than Texas, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because North Dakota's cooler than Texas, right? Cooler, I mean, temperature-wise, right? But there's more variability within the landscape here than there is across the entire region, right? So yeah, variability is important, because I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't variability, right? So I count on variability. All right, so that one's not working, so I can skip over that. Okay, so let's get into the meat of this. So this is from Perry Cabot. He's across the street at that water conference. So we're going to talk a little bit about water management and the kinds of things that we're looking at in terms of regenerative thinking. So now I'm going to put out another word, right? Who understands what regenerative ag is? What is that? What is it?
It's where you put microbes. Basically what I'm doing is I'm farming microbes.
Great. That's a regenerative practice.
Right.
Anybody else got another regenerative practice? Any other ones? It's all regenerative, right? That's the word, right? That's good, man. I like it. I'm like hard to change and everything. I wear the same clothes for the last 30 years, but my point is the regenerative thing is the right way to think of it, but we all need to agree about it. Regenerative is not going back. It's going forward, right? We're not going to go back and do what we did 30 years ago. We got to think of different things to do, right? It's got to be different. The way we think about it is different, right? So this is over in the Colorado River Basin. We have a research center over there. It's one out in Fruita. It's called the Grand Valley Research Center. We have one in Orchard Mesa, which is where we have our pomology, and we have an organic, 100% organic certified up near Rogers Mesa, right outside of Paonia. You should get up there and take a look at it. It's great, great site. Brad Tonneson runs it. It's super. And this is our observatory. So we call our research, we have 10 research centers. We call it an observatory, right? And that's because I stole that from somebody else. But anyway, the point is that we treat this as it's one big laboratory. You walk in here, we make the same measurements we make over there. You can get real-time measurements. You walk in, it's like mission control for agriculture in Colorado, right? That's what we're doing, right? It's an observatory. We run the same experiments across these different, why? Because it gives us a climate change gradient, right? We can run the same experiments all over the state, and they just give us differences in climate, right? And you can do these all really cool things. How many people have degrees in soils in here? All right, there we go. That's cool. Don't tell me you were in my class, man. I'll fucking kill you.
No, Dr. Neighbors.
Oh, who'd you have?
Neighbors?
Oh, yeah. Oh, good for you. Okay, anyway.
Did you hang out with him?
Yeah, well, anyways. Okay, so these are the programs we have, right? Climate-informed agriculture, biological invasions, right? All that, okay. Soil health, yeah, okay. So what we're really working on is improving irrigation, right? Because, and we have to be careful because we try to do what farmers do, right? So we got to do both. We still have to do some flood irrigation. We do a little bit of sprinkler. We do a lot of sprinkler. We do pivots. This is a linear, right? Linears are great for research because we can manage water across large areas. So we can try different varieties of crops, right? So you look at the literature and somebody say, well, organic, the food that comes out of organic has got more nutrients than conventional. Not true. Not yet.
I'd say regenerative for that.
Yeah, it's regenerative, but it's not. It's more the variety than it is the soil. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying I think that's where the industry needs to go.
I mean, but that also comes down to understanding that specific function in that specific
What's in the soil,
ecosystem.
instead of, right. But so you can't just say, well, if I do organic, my food's no nutritious, because that's not true. Because if I could take a different variety and it's really variety driven. That's the scary part. Anyway, so, all right, so this is our new linear. And so, and what we're doing is AI. So what we're trying to do is we're monitoring everything from the crop level, right? We're monitoring the heat, water transfer, everything at the crop level, all the way up to the landscape level, right? So we have sensors that look at meters squared, 10 meters, and we have this all. And the idea with AI, does everybody know what I mean by artificial intelligence? Okay, so, and the trick to AI is lots of data, right? It's like your iPhone. That's the best example. You put your face up to your iPhone now. I don't have to look at my iPhone, right? The iPhone hears my voice. And I'm just kidding, but it's, you know what I'm saying? It's seen you like 10,000 times, so it just goes like that. Well, that's what you need. You need lots of data. That's what we have to do. We have to start collecting lots of data, right? And then you can forecast. So we measure it. We can measure production data. We can look at the crop response data. We can look at data that's archived and compare it, right? That kind of thing. I'm almost done. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is our research site out there. We have this linear moving across here, and what we can do is we can spread water at any rate we want, fertilizers, right? And we have organic on this side, we have organic, but we're not doing any of this on organic yet because we just don't know if it works yet, right? But we're just trying to set up monitoring systems, right? So we can do a lot of that stuff. This is that's what the Grand Ditch over there. So we have a really nice location for water in Grand Valley, so it's a good place. Okay, so these are the kinds of things we're testing out, right? Ways of putting on chemicals, right? Now, organic, you got to be careful, right? What you can put on, but this doesn't cost you anything. Just buy the drone, right? You don't have to have somebody out spraying. You don't have to get on a tractor, right? So we started doing it, and it actually saves an enormous amount of time. And listen, I work with a lot of conventional farmers, and they have to use chemicals. I mean, I'm just saying, right? We all know that. My dean gets mad. I just do this I'm just saying, but I have dudes that say to me, hey man, I don't want to do it. You want me to put on those clothes and that mask? I don't want to do any of that crap, right? Well, you can do something like this and you can be much more efficient. You don't over fertilize, you don't over herbicide, you can really be very precise with what you're adding. Then you have the weed locator, right? This is even better, right? This thing, have you seen this thing? It walks across the field and you can program it to pick out a weed. And when it sees it, it just picks it. Chop, 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 and it walks across the field. It's incredible. It works, right? And then we have automated harvesting, right? That's the new thing. Labor is huge, right? Maybe not for the small and mid scale. Well, it is. I mean, you got to have people that work, right? So automation in harvesting is really key. So we're working on that technology as well. So when we say we work on it, it's these guys work on it, and then we work with them. So we say, hey, we'd like to try that out. And they'll say, well, you want to buy it? I go, no. And I say, okay, well, you can try it out. So we try it out and we do some research on it. And then the plant health identification, where you can actually go through and you can read the leaves, right? And you can kind of see what the nitrogen content of the leaves. And if you think broadly, that might help you with what's in the soil, right? Which is, we know nitrogen is one of the best indicators, right? What's in the soil. Okay, so this is how we monitor, right? So we can monitor we fly a drone over it, and we use different types of sensors. We use thermal sensors, right? We use multispectral sensors, all those things. And all those colors are telling us something about the plants, right? Okay, they're saying it's getting water, it's not getting enough water, it doesn't have enough, whatever you want to put in there, you can ask that question. Okay, we're getting down. Last thing. So this is it. So we have a climate monitoring soil moisture network we're putting together for the state of Colorado. We're taking every sensor that I stock, and my students will find the ones that I can't remember, and we're going to put them on there too. And then what we do, we put in an appropriations request for $1.5 million, which is not enough. We'll have to get another $1.5 million. And we're going to take the network and connect the networks. It'll be a network of networks. And then everything will go up into the cloud, and any farmer can sit down. You can sit down and look at well, let's talk about that later. But the idea is that you'll be able to have access to water real time. And that gives you the power with AI, because you're doing real-time measurements, and then you can make the calculations and the algorithms to turn on sprinkler, turn off sprinkler, turn on, do this, turn on, right? It's just, and that's where we need to go with agriculture. Okay, I'm almost done. This is soil science meets big data. This is what I do in my laboratory. So I like to spend my time here, right? And all my students spend their time up here, right? And out here doing all the modeling and everything. But you start with sampling soils, right? And there are all these different aspects of that. These are all projects that I have now. Okay, this is the stuff that I thought was kind of cool. So everybody know what microbiome is? What's that? What is microbiome? So just give me, there's no right or wrong answer.
It's your digestion from top to
It's
bottom.
everything, right? There's microbiome on everything. There's microbiome on the edge of that coffee cup. There's a microbiome on this hat. There's a microbiome on this, right? Somebody else's. Anyway, so you got microbiome all over the place, right? In your gut, right? So what they're showing is that the microbiome of the soil can match your gut, right? And they show things like that increases the incidence of hypertension in places based on the microbiome. This is like, heavy stuff, right? But I just wanted to show you that this is where everything is going. I mean, it's the microbiome thing it's really big, right? The problem is it's too big. It's Pandora's box. So we opened up the box and we're saying, oh my God, look at all these cool things. We're only characterizing we're getting less than half. We don't know nothing of what's there. They haven't characterized genetically the things that are in soils. Soils have more biodiversity than the oceans. So there's bazillions. I can't even tell you. It's like, well, I have a teaspoon, it's a billion. It's something like it is, right? So nobody knows what's there, right? So it's wide open, but that's really cool, right? If you could figure that out, because that might be a really good indicator of soil health, right? If you can pick out the organisms that do nitrification, the ones that do phosphorus turnovers, right? And you could fingerprint those, that would be a powerful soil health tool. You take it into CSU's lab, we say, hey, your soil's healthy. You get an A, you get a B, you get a C, D in my class. Anyways, right? Okay. So that's where we're going with microbiome. And then I wanted to show you that we mapped it out for the planet. And so this just shows that there's a really strong connection with the This is really cool. This is an interesting result. pH is really important. pH is like the master variable for everything, right? For now, until we find out something else, and then I'll say that paper wasn't any good. But pH tells you a lot. It's like water. So if you had to know two things about soil, what would you want to know?
pH and water content.
pH and water content and texture is another one. I've got three. I should have said three. Okay, I'm done. All right. Sorry it took so long. Here's my contact information. And I'm available. I'm available for consulting. I'm not. I'm just kidding. But anyway.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Phil,
Any
before we move
questions?
on?
Yeah, good.
All right. Is CSU lab going to be able to start testing biome?
Yeah, so we have a woman named Kelly Wrighton who works up at CSU, brand new professor, superstar, right? And so what we did is I'm at the Ag Experiment Station. We have a new laboratory. Have you seen the lab up here yet?
No.
Oh, we have a beautiful new laboratory across the street in the Terra building. So during the break, if I'm around, we'll get you up there. We have a beautiful soil health laboratory, which is going to be in operations in about another 2 or 3 weeks. And a big part of that is we're running all the climate smart commodity stuff from CDA there. We're going to be doing that. We're going to be the gold standard for soil health. But I think this is an important thing. And as the director, I went ahead and invested in this microbiome thing. So I have 2 graduate students working on a microbiome analysis for Colorado. So we're sampling all the soils all over and they're going to try to come up with the first prototype of that and see how that works. And what we see, the problem is you have to link soil health to something. So just not to be dark again, but right, there's not one study that shows that soil health increases productivity. I know that sounds stupid. There's not one research study that says, I'm just telling you that. I know that. But we know what soil health, we know what soil health should be. You get a warm, fuzzy feeling, you're happy, right? But we don't have, if it makes a difference, right? I mean, I don't want to, I spent my whole life doing this, man. I love it. But I'm just being honest with you, right? So I'm just saying that's what we need to do in research. We need, Vilsack said, we don't spend enough money on, or I asked him about organic. Yeah, we don't spend enough on organic. We don't spend enough on, there's not enough money on research. We don't know everything, man. I'm telling you, man, I know everything about soils and I don't know shit. Seriously, it's so complex. It really is. It's amazing. You should, if you ever have kids, make them study soils. It is amazing. I've been all over the world, everywhere. Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
There's a book out by Leroy Hood and Nathan Price. It's called The Age of Scientific Wellness.
Uh-huh.
And you're talking about, the application of AI to the health of soils. And their book talks all about the application of AI to human health.
Great.
They founded an Institute for Systems Biology, and it's a nonprofit, but there should be there's a lot of
There really is.
correspondence.
There's a lot out there, and
Correspondence
I think,
between-
and I encourage you, it's great. I think that's the way you should think, right? We don't have that much time on this planet when you think about it. So just think like that. It's okay. It's a good thing. And there's answers out there. Just dig, you know?
The human microbiome and the relationship to our soil microbiome.
There's a connection somewhere there, but we just don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway. All right. Yeah, sorry.
Catherine.
Referring back to one of your earlier slides where you said, well, there's no way that carbon sequestration is gonna meet the level that's needed to save the planet.
Well, no, I'm not.
But, okay,
Yeah, I didn't say
Comma.
that, but.
well,
Okay,
I
yes,
might
sir.
not be entirely
Okay.
accurate. But I'm curious, what is your answer?
That's a good question.
What
You know,
is-
why did you ask me that? No, anyway, so no, I'll tell you what it is. No, so what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say by that is that there's a scientific, let me rephrase that. Carbon is the single best indicator of ecosystem status. I've published that. That's true. Sequestering, putting carbon in soils is not going to offset fossil fuel use.
Yes.
So you cut out fossil fuels, right? Cut it out, okay? Everybody stop, right? Stop fossil fuels, right? And then you start doing regenerative practices. You're not gonna put back what we've already lost over the last 5,000 years, right? But putting carbon in the soil is completely a great idea because of the microbiome. If it's a home for microbiome, I'm all about building the house, right? So organic matter provides a lot of capacity to hold water. It holds nutrients. It provides, nitrogen's the big thing. We're missing, the nitrogen is the biggest thing that we're missing, right? Because the nitrous oxide being put out into the atmosphere, is the greenhouse gas emissions are huge, and that's solvable. You just got to stop using nitrogen, a lot of nitrogen fertilizer. Organic is the perfect alternative to that. That's where I think the niche is. Yeah.
But actually,
No, it's okay.
I got shut down 2 years ago at a soil conference when we talk about, remember the Haber process?
Oh yeah,
which
sure. Haber
was-
Bosch, man, that's great.
So
Building bombs and everything was good.
we're not talking about that carbon footprint. It's what, 200 bars of atmosphere and 800 degrees to transfer those
Yeah. So when you
ammonia
So
based.
the question is that when you're adding nitrogen, you're burning carbon, right? Because you have to use carbon to make the nitrogen fertilizer, right? That's the problem.
So your microbiome is interesting.
So the microbiome is related, right? But the microbiome is different because if we think of the planet now, I would bet, if I was a betting man, if there is somebody up there, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, but anyway, the point is like, if you talk about that, we've already probably reduced our microbiome in soils by some percentage, right? Because of what we've done. When we homogenize practices, we had this, we know that there used to be 80,000 species of rice, right? And now there's like 110, right? You know, we know what modern agriculture has done, man. We don't need to apologize, right? We fed a planet, 10 billion people. That's a big job. We just need to move ahead. We need to evolve together,
I
right?
think we've always advanced. I mean, we can go back 3,000 years. The Roman plow
Right.
was destructive.
Absolutely.
I mean, it removed soil from fertile lands into the oceans.
Yeah.
We go to colonial times and we see what we did with tobacco plantation.
Yeah.
I mean, Jefferson and Washington were sending letters back and forth about regenerative agriculture
Yeah.
250 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we're using it like it's a
I
stigmata.
have a piece coming out on regenerative ag. I don't know if it's going to get accepted, but I put a piece in the Times. And so if it gets in, I'll send everybody a thing, let you know. But it's exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
Sounds like get rid of fossil fuel
Correct.
use and focus on soil life.
Yeah, agriculture is energy intensive. I went to the largest French fry factory this summer in Washington. I was walking around in there going, there's no way I'm giving up my waffle fries, man. I want this to happen, right? I was using more energy than you can imagine to cut them and clean them and freeze them and all that kind of stuff. All right, I'll get the hell out of here. All right, good seeing everybody. All right, thank you, team. See ya. I'll try to start by, if there's nobody here for the tour, I'll try to come by, all right?
Thank you.
Okay.